Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm gonna be doing like a video just all inclusive this week. A doctor's appointment for my little kid, baby Cheetah 2, and some other stuff that came up. And then I started feeling sick last night myself. I have like a little cold, so I might be like coughing into the mic. Anyways, I'm just gonna kind of do it all in one video. It's a little more of an inconvenience for you guys because you can't just go directly to the game. You maybe want to look up, what I'm breaking down in. But I'm gonna go in the order of like rotation numbers. So just go straight down the list. Essentially, you can just forward and find the game you want to find if you don't want to listen to the entire thing, which is fine. And I'm not 100% aware if I can upload like an hour-long video at once, and the Houston Cincinnati game starts in 20 minutes. So I'll probably just separate this into like two parts and have a part one and a part two. But we'll just go ahead and get started now. The first game is this Houston Cincinnati one, which I lined at 6.5, and no one's going to actually be hearing this. By the time it's up, this game will probably be ending. So I'm not going to go much into that. If I had to make a play, though, I would take Cincinnati, which I do have to do for that contest prop bet I'm doing with some friends. So I took Cincinnati +8 in that. Rice Baylor, kind of inflated line at 31. I had it about 28, and so it's not like a ton of inflation for more than probably just that Rice has looked really bad for 2 weeks. Not only against Western Kentucky, who I had mentioned in some other videos, is just a really bad matchup for them. Rice tries to run the ball, control the ball. Western Kentucky came out slinging. They went up 21 really quick, and it just took Rice completely out of their game plan and what they try to do. So I thought Army was a better matchup, and then they got beat pretty good by Army. So now they're playing like a better Western Kentucky and Baylor, who's gonna be going quick and scoring at ease most likely. So it's tough to really make a play here because I think the number's a little high, but the X's and O's of it and the way they match up, Baylor can score 70, and I don't see Rice without being able to run the ball like they like to do, really staying in this. So it's a question. I have to decide later tonight which side I'm taking. I'll probably end up taking the 31 just because it's a number that's high, but too tough for me to bet this game, so I'm passing. Arizona State, Texas San Antonio. For those that weren't on Twitter or whatever, just didn't hear or see, I apologize. I'm gonna have to actually answer a couple texts throughout this because it's gonna be longer. But give me 10 seconds. All right, we're good. The Arizona State line moved pretty drastically against me. It was my one play that I released last week that went the other way, and it was okay. I mean, it's like it happens, especially early in the season. Like other people had a different opinion, I guess, than me, either about ASU or they love Texas Tech. Which either way, I didn't get either reasoning for that. Texas Tech is the worst defense in the entire country, arguably, especially against the run. They literally were the third worst last year, and personnel-wise, they got worse this season, and it was a lot of question marks on their defense coming in. And so Arizona State is just going to run it all over them, especially now that Arizona State kind of has a running type quarterback attack. And that one kid, Balaj or whatever his name is, had like 8 touchdowns. Like he tied the all-time record for touchdowns in a game. Anyways, I laid 3 and 4, and it closed dogs. I didn't get it at all. But anyway, the point being, I'm as big probably on ASU as anybody, and I only lined this game against Texas San Antonio like 17 and a half. So getting 20 and a half, and it's maybe even going to hit 21 today at the current time. I know it's been like 19 and a half most of the week, but it went up today to 20 and a half. I think that's actually a pretty good play. So it's a bad spot for Arizona State, obviously off the Texas Tech win too, and they got don't remember who the team is, but it's their Pac-12 opener on deck. So yeah, I would bet Texas San Antonio if I had to here. I haven't made a personal play, and I probably wouldn't unless it got over 21. But people that are leaning that way, I definitely think San Antonio is the right side. I could never lay it here with Arizona State, to be honest. Next game, nothing for me here. Arkansas State, Utah State. It's a game I lined lower, like 7, but there's a good chance I just have been wrong about Arkansas State from the get go. I haven't bet their games, but just in general, like the Toledo Arkansas State game, I mean, they were down like 35 in that game at home. It was a double revenge game. They lost to Toledo twice last year. They met in the bowl game as well. and they were at home, chance to kind of prove that they're good, or at least can hang with a Toledo, but they couldn't. And then against Alabama, they finally did score a touchdown right at the end and covered for some people that I think had the plus 28.5. But the the point is, they couldn't score, and they couldn't score that against Toledo until at the end when Toledo just gave up when they were up 35, and then Arkansas State did score two touchdowns because I think it landed like 21, which was insignificant. It was a blowout either way. So, anyways, the fact that this is 9 and my number actually I think is 6.5. I'm not taking Arkansas State. That's the point. Like, I haven't played their other two games, and I haven't adjusted like as much as maybe I need to on their power rating. I'm gonna wait and see how they respond here in this spot in Logan, which is really tough to play. Altitude for an Arkansas State team they don't see it very often. So I can understand why it's a little inflated, anyways. But if Utah State wins this game by like 21, like I'm gonna have to kind of pull some drastic measures on Arky State and lower where I have them personally. So for me, it's a pass completely. Kind of just one of those games where sit back, wait, gather more data, so to speak, and use that moving forward throughout the season. Eastern Michigan Charlotte is a client play, so for those that are maybe just watching for the first time, you can go to wagertalk.com and get my plays for the week. I'll plug last week we went 15-5. My volume's really high. We won't have 20 plays this week, but I think we're at 15. Probably end up with 17 or something. I usually add one or two games like Saturday morning. Anyways, we did pretty well last week, so if you're interested, you can get like the weekend pass is the best value, especially with the amount of volume that I have. And we have a play here. We also have a play in the next game, Western Michigan, Illinois. So I'm not going to break that one down. East Carolina, South Carolina. This one's weird. I saw it come down, and it's at 3, which it does kind of. I scratched my head a couple minutes the other day when I saw it get to 3 on Tuesday. I think it opened 5.5. I haven't actually checked, but it's close enough. It's really weird because South Carolina obviously looked really bad against Mississippi State, but they also looked bad against Vanderbilt week 1. But they scored a couple times late and actually won the game. But East Carolina, I think the real team here is where you might be getting the line value. Is they just upset NC State. For them, that's an upset. It's a big win. And I know some guys, they're pretty sharp guys, are laying it with NC State, and I know it moved up before kickoff, and they never really had a chance. They were kind of in it for the third quarter. It got to the fourth, and like ECU, I believe, just pulled away. So maybe that's why this line's low, but it seems really weird for East Carolina off a pretty big win to go on the road to an SEC school and only be 3-point underdogs. So for me, in this challenge that I do where I have to pick ATS every game, I'll definitely be taking -3 South Carolina. It's short quite a bit. This is their chance, I guess, to really, get a home win. I think it is their home opener because they played at Vanderbilt and then at Mississippi State. So yeah, this is their home opener. It's a low number. I'd be really surprised if this didn't come up. I think I had it at 6. Let me check. Yeah, I have it right at 6, and pretty significant if you're able to get the -3 when it should be 3 points higher. Next game is Florida State Louisville. I have a client play in that game, so we're gonna pass through it. Temple Penn State. This one's really weird. I talked about it on a podcast last night. If you want a little more detail, you can see my Twitter feed. I retweeted that. It was with the CCH guys, which by the way, I should give them a plug. I know a lot of people that are listening to these breakdowns are people that are trying to do it on their own, meaning capping games. They're guys that can't afford to buy picks, which is completely reasonable. You shouldn't if you're only betting $25 a game, So anyways, for people that are kind of in that boat or that audience, you should go check them out at CCH Picks, I believe is the actual handle. Especially like if you have money offshore, like they hit the bet online openers on Sundays that are lower limits, but you can still get 500 down on one of those. So for most people, that's plenty. But they're generally right about those numbers that open early and their assessments. So for people that don't buy picks but want kind of some good information as far as college football goes, that's all they really do. And I think they're in the Super Contest to do some NFL. But anyways, it's a good spot I think to just get more information for free. They're completely free. So That's my recommendation, by the way. I was on their podcast last night. They just invited me as a guest. I don't know if it'll be a reoccurring thing or not, but it was good to talk with Colin. We talked about this Temple Penn State game. It's a spot that Penn State's off the big pit. I called it a fiasco last week. I don't know why wanted to say fiasco, but they came back and almost won the game. They were down 21 early. That's probably why. I mean, they looked really bad. And it took a lot of energy out of them. Now they're at home, and then they have the at Michigan Big Ten opener on deck. But it's not going to be one they're overlooking. Like, I don't think it's normally, maybe it would be a sandwich spot. But remember, Temple beat them outright last year, so they're not going to be overlooking a Temple team. The number's a little low. I had it right at 10, but there's not enough really for me to bet it, and I'm not betting it. But the weird thing about this game, and this might have been updated since I saw this. This was like 1 a.m. or midnight or something Tuesday, so Wednesday morning, I guess. I was wrapping some work up I was doing, and on ESPN they broke news that Penn State's honoring Joe Paterno's like 50th year anniversary since he's actually coached his first game. And the entire like breaking news thing was actually about essentially how up in arms the fans are, especially the students that are there. It just came out just months ago that like he knew about it the entire time and just kind of put it aside. What happened there at Penn State? We don't need to get into that, but that's very awkward. They're gonna be like honoring this guy that, sure, one of the greatest coaches ever. It's still so fresh on people's minds and too new to, I think, do this. It's just such a weird like feeling, and I don't know if the stadium's just going to be super awkward. You have a home team there trying to play after something like that. I don't know how to really assess it from a handicapping standpoint, other than it's never happened before. But I think maybe it gives Temple a little bit of an edge early if they can catch Penn State just kind of in a weird state. But just going to watch it as pure curiosity. I talked to someone else that said like there's no way they go through with that, because on media they got blasted, like people on Twitter everywhere, like it was like the stupidest idea ever, and it really is. I mean, it's terrible. I don't know why they were going to do it. So odds are it's probably going to get canceled if it hasn't yet. That's why I said I'm not sure if it has it now as of Thursday at 4:20 here in Vegas. But anyways, I'd have to probably take Temple if I made a play, even though my number's a little higher. Penn State hasn't necessarily looked great. Pitt fumbled twice inside their own 10 late, which is why Penn State scored 14 points to even cut it to 3, or maybe it was to even cut it to 7, and then there was a field goal and then one more touchdown, I think, is maybe how it went down. But yeah, I mean, they were fortunate to ever get back in that game in the first place. So I think they're still coming along. They have the new offensive coordinator from Fordham. They're trying to run more up tempo stuff. Ultimately, hasn't really worked a ton. So just gonna kind of wait and see. Personally, if I had to make a play, like I said, Temple. Next is Maryland, Central Florida. I know this total's moving up. It's probably the right play if you bet 57.5 or 58.5 the last few days. It seems right. It was very, very interesting to see that Central Florida actually ran for, I don't have it up in front of me, but it was like almost 250 yards against Michigan, against the Michigan defense. It was very impressive. I know they missed a couple field goals. They should have covered that game. If you had plus like 35.5 or whatever it was, that's one that if you ran it back, they would be covering. They finally, they get a home game here against Maryland, a team that's coming off a really easy win against FIU, a team that's just been getting blasted. I don't know. I feel like getting 10 or better if you can. I mean, 10's basically the number, some 9.5s. Or the over, just because Central Florida, if you don't know off the top of your head yet, the new coach there is Scott Frost, who came from Oregon, the offensive coordinator there. So they run the up-tempo kind of, as many plays as you can type offense. And Maryland's a pretty efficient offense so far, especially against weaker teams like Central Florida. So I'm staying away because I'm still kind of out to see, the jury is out to see, the difference that Scott Frost potentially has made with Central Florida. So I'm excited to watch that game, actually, just for the sake of learning more about the two teams. Next up's Virginia, Connecticut. I have a client playing that game, so I'll be passing. Next up's Iowa State, TCU. And that one is, a little bit high. I had it 21.5, but at the same time, this is similar to Arkansas State. I may have overrated Iowa State coming into the season a little. It's way too early to make drastic changes. You don't want to overreact, so I haven't yet. Plus, I kind of think TCU is not very good, as you couldn't tell last week, because Arkansas is not very good either. We'll probably get more to that game later. But the point is, Iowa State lost at home to an FCS school. Then they playing their big rival on the road, which always feels like means more to them than it ever does to Iowa. And they just got manhandled. I mean, they never were in the game at all. Um, so now they're getting 3.5 touchdowns, I should say. I think you can get the hook. At Pinnacle's 24.5 minus 113. I mean, that feels like such a good bet. Kind of a sell on TCU, buy low on Iowa State, but I don't have it in me to fire just because Iowa State might be that bad, and it's too bad because I think most people expected them to finally, have a team with a lot coming back and a couple of years under the new coach to make some sort of statement. I never thought they were going to be a bowl team, but I thought they could win 4 or 5 games. Maybe not the case. Anyway, so I'm passing there, and I think the total, if I remember, I did look at this one. Looks like Cincinnati got hit right before kickoff. It closed 7 at Chris and Bookmaker, or like plus money 7.5. So I guess Cincinnati did just get snapped. Sorry, I lost my train of thought, but I'm going through. Nope, it hasn't moved much. So I was at 62. I remember considering an overplay, and it's actually come down a point. So which is why I was checking. My number for the over is 64.5, and so I'm not 100% sure if I'll ever jump in. It'd probably have to come down another point or two, but if you're leaning that way, I think there is some value. There's an edge on the over just from a sheer numbers perspective, and again, I'd probably have to get like a 58 or something, or 59 to actually play it, but for now, I'm keeping an eye on it. Sorry, let me pull up my list again. I'm probably going to go switch rooms when I start up the other video in a few minutes, part 2, so I can have the game on in the background. Probably will really start in 4 minutes or something. Colorado, Michigan. This one's one I'm really curious about too. We'll be watching it. Michigan hasn't played anybody. They cupcaked through Hawaii, and UCF is 35 plus point favorites both times, and their defense didn't look great against. Like I said, they gave up a lot of rushing yards to UCF. Colorado's a lot better team. And I think a lot of people say, oh, well, they'll be able to score points on Michigan, unlike Hawaii or UCF, which is true. They should be able to score more points. But a lot of people underrate their defense greatly. They opened their season against Colorado State, rival game that's usually close. They held them to 7. I mean, people bring up they scored 42 on Colorado State. It's like, okay, I think a lot of teams will score 42 on Colorado State, but Colorado State's not going to score 7 or less again probably all year. I mean, that was very impressive from Colorado's defense. From that side of the ball, they're a lot better and underrated there. And so for me, one of the closest totals that I barely missed my card was under 57. I see it's 56 now. Plus 20.5, I think, is also a pretty good bet. It's kind of correlated where if Colorado can limit the Michigan offense some, which I actually expect them to, then they're going to probably be within 3 touchdowns. The problem is Harbaugh's an ass, and he always will run it up if he can. So he's relentless. If they're up 17 late with 2 minutes left in their quote-unquote running out clock, but they'll make sure to score one more, and they win by 24, even though Colorado was covering for 59 minutes. It just feels like one of those games potentially. My actual number on it was 18, and that's because I haven't adjusted either team. So like preseason, I believe that would have been my number, like in my college football preview as well. Although I probably need to adjust Colorado a little because I think their defense, like I said, just in my head, I probably and everyone else have underrated them to an extent. So watch out for that. I think if you like the under, that's the play in this game, if anything. New Mexico, Rutgers. Interesting game. I don't remember who it was off the top of my head in FCS. I believe it was Howard. Rutgers went down 14-0 at half to Howard after getting wamboozled by Washington in week 1. And then Rutgers scored like 52 in a row. So they finally woke up. New Mexico is definitely the better team, actually. So to see this at like plus 5.5, 6 is surprising to me. I would definitely consider a play on New Mexico if it got to 7. New Mexico's coming off a loss, though, to New Mexico State, which is kind of sad. They were double-digit favorites, but it's also a rivalry game and probably means a lot more to New Mexico State to get that than New Mexico ultimately. So keeping an eye on this one. Definitely a buy point at 7 for me for New Mexico, though. My number was like 2.5 or 3. So Anyways, that's that one. Nothing on the total there. Middle Tennessee State, Bowling Green. I don't recall one thing. Let me look. Okay, no, this is a client plate. I wasn't sure if I released this one or not because it moved really quick. So I don't know. I don't mind. Obviously, people that are smart can see. It's 6.5 now, but it opened at 3. So, anyways, so the play was Middle Tennessee State -3, and so it was a client play. It was just a bad number. Bowling Green's atrocious. If you watched one of my best bet videos for week 1, we laid it with Ohio State against Bowling Green, and I went through all the reasons why and just their coaching staff and all the new people there. Anyways, Middle Tennessee State. If it came back down to 3, it won't. But there's a free play for you. Florida International, Massachusetts. This is one I don't really know. FIU's been so bad, like I mentioned previously, and Massachusetts has kind of hung in against Florida a little bit, even though it was like super rainy and kind of just one of those weird games. But they played pretty well against Boston College last week at home, and probably should have covered. Boston College, I think they won by 19, which covered the numbers after a touchdown late in the game. I had laid them -7 second half. I didn't bet the game pregame, but I played Boston College second half, which would have pushed, but then they got the touchdown and I covered. But it also made it, a 14-0 second half win, which covered all the numbers. So I kind of feel bad for UMass fans or bettors even, because they were in that game. Yard discrepancy wasn't very much, and they might be better than most expected. And Florida Nationals sure has looked terrible. So this is just another one I kind of just going to watch, follow, and make adjustments so that we can take advantage in week 4 and forward if opportunity presents itself in these teams' future games. Georgia State, Wisconsin. Excuse me. This will be the last one I do for this part 1 video, and then gonna head into the other room so I can flip on the Cincy game. Although I do have a TV in this room. We're waiting for there's like an office, so to speak, but what's the company? DirecTV needs to come install a third box in our house. I haven't gotten it up and running yet. 35.5 is the current number. It's a little high. I had it 33.5, but I understand Wisconsin's just been trucking teams. Not only did they beat LSU, who's really good, obviously, but they crushed Akron in a really, really bad spot. Despite Akron plus 25 closing like 21.5. So credit Wisconsin. I'm not touching the game this high. I wouldn't be surprised if they won by 100. So just staying away. There's a team that I typically you won't see like running up scores. But remember, Ball State week 1 on the road rushed for 300 plus yards against this Georgia State defense. Wisconsin could unintentionally run this up by just running the ball the entire second half, and the defense not being able to stop the third string running backs and offensive linemen. So that's why you just really can't touch it. Even if you do like Georgia State, you have to stay away. I just think it's one of those games where, similar to Ohio State Bowling Green, I talked about in that week 1 video. I referred to it again. Maybe go watch it if you want to hear more about it. I'd say they might unintentionally run it up, and I think they did. They scored like 70 or 77. So, anyways, I think this is a similar type of thing. Wisconsin may just score 21 in the second half when they're just running the ball every play. That's going to be it for this part 1 video. I'll do part 2 here in just like 2 minutes, and then I'll post both of them on Twitter.